And welcome, everyone, to show number 105, where I can legitimately say for the first time for over 2 years, we have been coming to you each and every week. Mr. Tim Peters is just joining on with us well. And as a great and pleasant surprise for us today on show number 105, we have as a special guest co-host Mr. Jonathan StOnge with NewsCred, who you'll see as the unfamiliar face in the lower, it would be my lower left-hand corner, but I don't know whose other corner that would be. But Mr. Jonathan StOnge, welcome to show number 105 for us today.
Thank you. Great to join you guys today from beautiful Rocky Mountains of Colorado.
And as always with us is Mr. Edward StOnge from FlipJew, my upper right, and Mr. Tim Peter, who just walked in with us from Tim Peter and Associates. Hi, Mr. Tim. Thank you for joining us.
Hello.
As we discussed a little bit in the green room to it, Jonathan, the show is yours for at least the half hour or however long we have the privilege of your time to discuss whatever it is you would like. Of course, our greatest interest is a little bit more to understanding what NewsCred does and is. I know we had some earlier discussions, and I myself was some confusion as to exactly the niches and so forth. And this is a chance to kind of get some clarity on a little bit of NewsCred and a little bit of yourself as well, and to toss it in. So wherever you would like to take us, it's yours to do.
Love it. I will take you on a magic carpet ride starting right now. So yeah, really great to join you guys today. Lauren and I had the chance to connect a few months ago via a mutual friend at Alice, another great travel tool you guys might be familiar with. And, you know, I said, this sounds like a just wonderful opportunity. I think a lot of your viewers are probably the exact type of clients who would generate a lot of value out of NewsCred, but I don't want to make this all about NewsCred. So for all the viewers listening, you know, definitely want to answer all your burning questions around the space of content marketing. So, you know, very curious to hear just sort of all the different, you know, hotels and travel companies, rental agencies, et cetera, that we might have on the call, their thoughts on content marketing. NewsCred really was one of the pioneers in this field about 9 years ago, and I won't dive into my long elevator pitch. I'll instead give you the short version and then open it up to questions, since I really don't want this to be just the NewsCred dog and pony show. But we recognize that there is a need for customers to really connect with their audiences in more authentic ways than just pummeling them with as many ads as they possibly could, trying to sort of get them to you know, click on a banner ad or not click, skip on a YouTube ad, et cetera. So the whole idea of content marketing was really created about 6+ years ago. NewsCred really being one of the pioneers in this field to say, what can we do to actually incentivize brands and companies to create content that isn't serving a brand or product focused ad to a customer, but instead actually trying to entertain them, inspire them, educate them, right? So what does this mean for hospitality? I do run our hospitality vertical at NewsCred. We work with clients like Starwood, United Airlines, Orbitz, and some of the other travel search agencies, Carnival, and a whole bunch of cruise lines. And all of these companies came to us to basically say, how can we elevate what right now feels like a very transactional, very short-term kind of one-off relationship with our customers, where they might have seen some deal that Carnival is hosting a 20% off sale right now, and that incentivizes them to buy, versus actually making content that earns their trust, develops our credibility in the space, and elevates the relationship from short-term and transactional to really long-term by giving them content that keeps us coming back. So if you go to spgweekends.com, this is the whole site that we've built for Starwood, where instead of actually only pummeling them with a 20% off deal or sign up for the SPG Amex card and save 20,000 points right now, all those forms of advertising are still important, but the idea of content marketing, vice versa, is now value to the customer journey. So we just did a great article for them around the top 5 rock venues to visit while in North Carolina. So you can get a really great view of all the different rock venues. You're not selling a Starwood property right then and there. What you're trying to do is inspire the customer to then say, wow, I've been looking for my dream summer vacation. Starwood just inspired me by showing me the top 5 rock venues, some of whom have my favorite bands playing this summer. I'm going to book my trip, and I'm already on spgweekends.com. So the most logical step is to click book now. And we have seen, you know, site traffic increase by 5-fold. This is across all of our travel and hospitality clients. Repeated bookings more than double. Customer loyalty signups tripled. So you begin to actually see the impact that content has on bottom line. And we always like to say that we're not just trying to get our clients to be good at content for content's sake. It's about using content to actually drive business. And if it isn't making dollars, then it doesn't make sense for us. And I will take a sip of water and a quick pause to throw out any questions to this group.
Awesome. Ed, I know you're probably chewing at some content. I had questions. So go
well,
right ahead.
I mean, I think it's great what they do. You know, one of my favorite things I ever saw was a gentleman back in the day from Expedia really call out how Google ruined content. And the way Google ruined content was by creating search algorithms that people want to game, and they game it by building content for search algorithm rather than content for the consumer. So the idea that more and more hotels are realizing that their content actually needs to be beneficial for the reader and not 100% only beneficial for the brand is really good. It's a movement in the right direction for this industry. You know, my question to you is, how long have you been with NewsCred?
Actually, about 4 months. And it's funny you mentioned Google. They were my former employer for about 4 years before coming to NewsCred.
Okay.
So I am all on board, you know, this whole Google kind of ruining, you know, search and making, you know, just trying to get high in those search results without actually caring about the consumer. That is actually a large part of why I left the digital advertising behemoth and came to, you know, the leader in enterprise content marketing, because I think it's all about forming a more honest, more authentic relationship with your customers, which we have seen, you know, how exactly that impacts the bottom line.
Well, and when you can inspire someone, they instantly feel loyalty to you. Mm-hmm. You know, and Tim, I know you're also. I see you.
Go ahead.
Tim and I end up being the content marketing evangelists the most on the show. So we were excited to have you on.
So yeah, we're very excited to have you on. All right, go ahead, Mr. Tim, please.
So just a quick question. I mean, if you're familiar with Mark Schaefer, you know, thought leader around content marketing and things along those lines, he talks a lot. And by the way, I have my own points of view on this, but I'd love to hear yours. But he talks a lot about content shock, right? There's a lot of good content being created out there. You know, what are the things that people can do to have what content they do create cut through the clutter, right? What are the things that, how does NewsCred help them do that? And, you know, if they're not using NewsCred, what are some things that they can do around that area?
Absolutely. I think it really starts first and foremost with putting your brand or whatever product or service you're selling completely secondary to the customer. Really putting the customer at the core focus of your content marketing. And you're actually going to notice a complete paradigm shift where, you know, I want to be very cognizant of the people that we have on the line, and I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but I've been a loyal customer.
Go nuts.
All right, why not? Let's ruffle some feathers. There's a major hotel chain that starts with an H, and I started, you know, their loyalty program, which is HH, about 12 years ago. And every single piece of media, every email marketing that I get from them is all about a 20% off discount or some package or sign up now for the Amex and get 20,000 points. They're never actually serving anything to me via email, which, by the way, is still the #1 form of digital marketing and the most effective. Absolutely. Above and beyond search and banner ads and YouTube ads, etc. So if you think about that, it's that you're only going to engender this very transactional relationship with your customers that are only going to be buying from you because you're the one offering that deal that they happen to see in that moment that they were looking to buy. Versus content, I always come down to 3 pillars. When to answer your question, Tim, of the type of content people should create, it should do one of 3 things. It should entertain, and if you look at what you know, Marriott did with their Bellman videos you might be familiar with, where they had these 12-minute long-form videos, which, think about it, we've become such a 140 characters or less, 60-second world where we're all running around with ADD, not willing to give an ad more than 15 seconds of our time, really 5 seconds if it's skippable, right? Yep. On a video ad. And here Marriott comes out with this beautiful I think it was 10 or 12-minute segment that garnered 10 million views on YouTube. That's all earned media. They gave it a little bit of boost with paid, of course, but then the word of mouth began, and Adweek started picking it up, and PR Week, and you have these ancillary effects where now Marriott, were they trying to get you to book a room instantly in that 10-minute video? Absolutely not. What they were trying to do was entertain you as a consumer. Let's move now to the other bucket, Inspire. The one that comes to mind right here is WestJet Airlines. We might be familiar with what they did around Christmas time, where they have this beautiful, very emotional, you're got to grab the box of Kleenex by the second minute this thing's on. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, just Google WestJet Christmas, where they basically went and took a bunch of children's Christmas wish list before their flight. They then scrambled. They have the mad dash of all the WestJet employees running to Toys R Us and Best Buy and, buying up all the gifts. And then on the carousel, when they land at their destination, all of their gifts begin coming out, and it's absolutely heart-wrenching. And you just, you develop so much love and affinity for the brand that, wow, I wasn't really thinking about buying a WestJet flight, but I sure am now, right? So that's the inspiration bucket. And then lastly is education. So this could be, what are the things that you're going to need to know when you check into your Marriott? It could be a little bit more of the logistics ones. How can you enjoy all of the spa services at the, Vail Marriott, which I'm about to check into on Sunday night. Little quick plug to them. Which, by the way, there's a great content marketing summit on Monday through Wednesday that I'm going to be doing a whole blog post and review of. So I could definitely send that out to anybody that's interested. So in conclusion, to answer your question, it's really about creating content that puts your brand and your product aside, focuses on what's going to actually add value to the consumer. And we see that that's done in really three main core pillars: inspiration, education, entertainment.
That's awesome. I want to jump in for 1 second just to tell a quick aside. We do this here from time to time.
No.
Aside from time to time.
It's never quick. It's always an aside.
Okay, this one will be quick. I promise it'll be quick. It's funny that you bring up, people doing email marketing and only doing discounts and things like that, or, get a whole bunch of points or
Get
whatever.
a coupon.
Yeah, and it's hysterical. I've told this story before, but I had a client I worked with who were like, oh no, we hate email. It's our lowest yielding channel. We get the least revenue from it and everything else. So we looked at their email and literally every single one was a discount. And I went, I think I know why it is you're making less money from email than anything else, since that's all you ever promote. So it's really, really
well.
And
here's the thing: we'll specifically continue picking on the one you wanted to pick on.
I was going to go there too, but that's all right. You go first.
Let's talk
about who HH was.
Had no clue.
No clue.
It used to be HHH. So let's talk about how that happens. So when you look at how this happens, it happens this way. They start doing email marketing, and they notice that every time they hit the button, they make $150,000, and that's their only KPI measurement that they look at, which is the $150,000 they made. So they go, all right, well, let's only hit that button once a week. So they hit the button next week, and they make $165,000, and they went, woohoo! Look at us. Then they keep going, and then they go, you know what? Let's not just hit that button corporately. Let's put in an architecture for each property to be able to hit that button at least once a month. But to make sure, we need to put in controls so that the properties don't send anything that we don't want them to send. And, and the problems are, one, they're missing the negative KPI. So I like to talk about negative KPIs a lot because no one ever really seems to talk about them. But every interaction you have has positive and negative KPIs. And it's important to understand what the negative KPIs of your actions are. So like one of the things I like to say to customers is customers of ours are hotels. So we do a lot like what you do, except not professional content. We focus on the content of travelers who have already experienced a specific hotel, and it's marketing automation to help them get that to their friends and family. So just to give you where I'm coming from on this. So when we talk to hotels, we get a lot of them saying, well, we can only send a total of 6 emails across the life cycle of our engagement in the transaction. And we ask the question, why 6? They don't know. But what they're trying to do is they're trying to not send too much communication. And this is where I like to kind of go into them and say, well, the only time there's too much communication is when you send the wrong communication. So 1 can be too much communication if it's wrong. However, if you're having the right discussion with someone, they're not sensitive to the cadence of that conversation. And the way you have the correct conversation with someone is if it's truly like a conversation. It benefits them. Right. They're an active participant in it, and you're paying attention to these things. And large organizations, I don't think, have discovered like really how advanced you can become with email. You know, you can actually have email automation that if someone doesn't open an email, or if they open an email and don't click, they're set on a different path than someone who opens an email, clicks, and surfs. And you can actually build, and it's not hard to do, you can build sophisticated approaches to have the right cadence of conversation with everyone in your database. I think, I don't know if it's that they just don't know that this exists, or their head starts to hurt when they think about what they would have to build out from a content perspective. But hotels in general have not taken content seriously. It's actually how the OTAs came to power. My first job in travel was working for a small OTA, and my job was doing a better job of building content for hotels for the OTA site than hotels do for their own site. Right. And guess what? It wasn't hard. No. And if you look at most market managers that work for Expedia and Booking.com, their only job is to do a better job describing what the traveler cares about on the hotel than the hotel does. And that's also why you don't see matching room descriptions between the sites and things like that, because the OTAs are hiring experts who understand what matters in a room description versus
to actually merchandise to merchandise the content, to merchandise the information.
Right. So I think a lot of how we got here was they pushed a button, got $160,000 and said that's great, but didn't look at the fact that they burned 25,000 people in making that $160,000. And they still don't look at that to this day. And that's why you end up with, I travel to a lot of those hotels you're picking on. And within about a single week, I'll get 10 different hotels sending me what is exactly the same email template, which is an image with a large percentage off in the upper left-hand corner. And I get it, and I look at it, and I just go, this tells me nothing. This tells me nothing about New York City and why I should come to New York City when you want me to. Right. And it's about lack of creativity in your approach that's really killing things. And then looking at just zombie databases because of it, because not everyone unsubscribes.
Right.
Some are worse. They just ignore you.
Right. Exactly. That's when you become what's called bacon. You know, it's really, really high quality spam. So Rob, Jonathan, you know, why
you haven't used that one in a long time.
So why professional content, right? Like, why should people consider professional content as they're looking at this?
So great question. And we actually break content down into 2 major pillars at NewsCred. You have original content and licensed content. I'll kind of go over these both separately. So we noticed—
Before you go into them, you guys do both though, right? You're involved on both. Yeah.
We actually kind of literally created the whole idea of licensed or syndicated content, specifically in marketing purposes. So I'll talk a lot about that. But original content, you know, when I love telling the story of NewsCred, it really started as one thing, then clients needed something else, and we completely, you know, evolved the business model to meet that. And then more recently, I'll even talk about the 3rd iteration. So it really started kind of chapter 1 was just the technology. Companies coming to us saying, you know, right now our marketing, you know, I get a email attachment with a, you know, image. I then have to merge that with copy that Joe sends me. Then Maria sends me the, you know, budget and where we want to do the media buy. And it's all fragmented. It's all over the place. So the first thing was the actual SaaS platform that allows anybody who touches marketing to build, plan, create, and ultimately measure. And I do want to spend a few minutes in a little bit talking about measurement, because that I think is the silver bullet of hospitality marketing that you have a lot of people claiming that they have kind of cracked the nut on, but I definitely want to talk about exactly where and how that nut gets cracked. So then the second iteration was, great, we have the platform, but damn, producing really amazing high quality content is expensive. How do we do this in-house? Do we need to go and hire, copywriters, graphic designers? Should we be doing this in-house? And we actually said, we then built the entire original content creation studio that can build anything from blog posts written by some of the top authors in the industry, infographics, videos, webisodes. If you can dream the type of content NewsCred can do it, often at a fraction of the cost that an agency is going to cost you, with a much faster turnaround time. And I think that that's really important for a few reasons, which is if you look at how most hospitality companies' marketing is structured, you probably have a creative agency that's actually doing the creative production. You then have a media agency that's doing all of the media buying. You then have your in-house team. They all have different KPIs. They all have different metrics. They all have different budgets, and what they're defining success as is completely different. Not to once again, give you my NewsCred pitch, but if you can then actually centralize all of those different processes in one place, you are going to begin to experience economies of scale. One thing that our clients get a major benefit of is we are constantly measuring what content is actually working best. So you might be doing blog posts, infographics, a weekend in Nashville, what does that look like for fun? A webisode about, interviews with, top VPs or maybe we have a customer of the month, right? Where we can show how we were able to give Jim and Kelly from Arizona their dream vacation in Maui, right? Whatever that case might be, it's actually emotional storytelling. So we have the ability to do that through original content.
And Jonathan, jump in for one quick second.
Go ahead.
You just said, how content, the content that's doing best, we can measure what's doing best. Can you just describe how you're defining best in that context, right? Just for a second.
Great question. And I think your question leads to, before I even answer that, we got to sort of set the stage for it, which is the exact definition of the KPIs that we should be tracking as hospitality companies. That is the first thing NewsCred comes in and does, and I'll talk about this in a second with our what's called CMAS, or Content Marketing Advisory Services, which I think a lot of these companies just say, we know we have to be doing content, let's just start pumping shit out, right? Can we use profanity?
Something's better than nothing.
Yep. Absolutely.
I wasn't sure if this is PG-13 or R-rated, but start pumping as much crap out as possible without actually thinking about what value is this adding to our customer journey. Is it, as I said, inspiring, entertaining, or educating? And if the answer is no to any of those three, you probably shouldn't be doing it. If you're advertising a deal, I got news for you. That's an advertisement. That's not content marketing, right? That's the very important.
If anything else said, that is an amazing point to make right there. Then that is like the signature statement. If you're putting an offer in, it's no longer content. It's an advertisement.
It's an ad, exactly. If you only take one thing away from today. So to answer your question, I think it's, tracking the right KPIs. And oftentimes you have companies that are not looking at things like loyalty signups, number of engagements that they have on the site, right? They might be looking at page visits. What the heck does a page visit mean if they spent 3 seconds on it before saying, wow, this HH platform offers me no value as a customer. I am not in Bicycle right now. I am not looking for a hotel room. Instead, I'm looking to be inspired and entertained on where I'm going to take my wife on my dream vacation this summer. If you're not doing that, you're not in the game of content marketing. You might still be doing some very, effective advertising, but content marketing is all about building that long-term lasting relationship. So that's where we really flip the script. And to answer your question, we really encourage our clients to look at KPIs that they might not have even looked at before, such as what is the number of pieces of content that were engaged with before they converted to a purchase? What is the repeat bookings that a customer is getting every year? What is the number of new loyalty signups that we're getting by all of the, and you have to, by the way, do different types of content to market to somebody that you're trying to convert to sign up for your loyalty program versus somebody that has already raised their hand, signed up for your, loyalty program. In some cases, they might even be paying for it, right? Because that comes with later discounts and VIP benefits, et cetera, down the line. So how are you nurturing that relationship once you've already established that loyal customer? And if you are only pummeling with steals and deals and discounts and promos, that is doing nothing to engender a long-term relationship with them. So that, I think, is the answer to the question, is what is the KPIs? It's no longer about short-term heads and beds. It's about, did this customer increase their number of bookings with us, but from 1 stay a year to 5 stays a year because of the amazing content that we kept serving them that actually brought them to our site? Think about just the email subject line. How much of a different conversation is it from 20% off your next H stay versus the top 5 destinations to visit this summer on a budget? Which one are you going to open more? I'm definitely going for the latter one.
Listen, if any hotel had sent me an email that said, cool getaways to escape the heat, I would have been all up in that email because it's been unruly hot this summer. And I just wanted to know, where can I go that it's 15 degrees cooler than Orlando?
Every place is 15 degrees cooler than Orlando, by the way.
Fair enough. Even Miami is.
Yeah. Hey, Robert had an earlier question. I don't know how applicable. Just let me read it off real quick. How many NewsCred hospitality clients are utilizing customized booking pads?
I think he means paths.
I'm sure he means paths. Yeah,
I was like, booking pads. I'm like, what the hell's a booking pad? That are relevant to the content being created. Sorry. So let me read that again. How many NewsCred hospitality clients are utilizing customized booking paths that are relevant to the content being created?
So I'm going to just have to make an assumption, unless, Robert, you're able to type back in. By customized booking pad, does that mean where it's still like it's like a widget from a third-party company, but still?
No, I think the idea he's trying to say is a different path to booking than just book now. So if you go to any hotel's website, check rates is maybe the half step in between, here's something, book now. Are any of your clients taking a more sophisticated long tail approach to engagement? Or are they still kind of taking a really, advanced approach to content marketing, but then bolting it up to a single point of call to action of book now?
Right.
Great question. I would say the book now is definitely our most important metric, right? I mean, it's great if they're doing other sorts of engagement, like filling out a questionnaire about their most recent stay. But ultimately, we want to try to generate as much profit for our clients as possible, right? So we try to encourage all of those other vanity metrics that are just as important to track, such as the number of pieces of content that they engage with before booking, open rates from email, click-through rates from email to actually get to the site. So that, and what, by the way, that allows us to do is then auto-optimize the customer experience to what's actually working best. So here's what I mean by that. If your customers land on your site and they first read, let's keep using this, top 5 rock venues in North Carolina piece that we just did for Starwood, we can actually then see, after reading this article, what did customers go to next? Was it another article? Was it a video? Was it a web series? And that allows us to actually serve. It's almost analogous to the Amazon, customers who bought this also bought. There's a reason that Amazon is the #1 e-retailer on the planet, and that's because they're continuing to serve you great things that you might be interested in buying more of, right?
Right.
In a similar way, if you can start to think like that as a hospitality marketer, yes, book now is important, but can you drive consistent other forms of engagement that are ultimately going to lead to those book nows, even if they didn't do it in that first interaction? Does that make sense?
It makes total sense.
It looks like Robert gets it too, because he typed basically what you said.
Yeah. Well, you make a great point though, Jonathan, because it's amazing how often, hospitality marketers jump to the chase, right? They cut to the chase. And when you think about it, we're asking people a really personal question, right? We're, you know, it's like meeting somebody the first time and saying, hey, will you sleep with me tonight? Which is really what we're asking them, right? But we're going right there instead of saying, hey, how about we have a little conversation first, get to know each other a little better, right? Maybe have a nice glass of wine.
What are your interests?
Right, exactly.
I think while they're drinking that wine, the onus is on us to say, and by the way, are you enjoying that wine? Or maybe you would enjoy a trip to Napa Valley. And by the way, we offer an amazing Starwood property in the heart of wine country. So it's like it's tapping into those needs and your desires of your consumer so that you can kind of slide in the book now link. And if you go, I keep mentioning SPG weekends because I think it's I know that we have a lot of hotel focus within this hospitality group. If you're in the cruise line, I would tell you to go to look at Carnival's Away We Go site that we've built for them. If you're in the search world, Orbitz, airlines, the hub at United Airlines. And the common thread running across all of these is that it's nurturing long-term relationships with your customers so that how are you engaging with them when they're not in buy cycle? And I think so often as hospitality marketers, we only think about buy cycle. How do I look, I just came from.
Oh, you don't even have to say you think that is all. And you can just look at where budgets are spent. The majority of advertising spend in hospitality is spending to be present at time of transaction.
Right.
So you're not even talking about waiting to focus on buy cycle. You're waiting to focus to, you've decided everything else and you're looking for the last piece. Great. I want to be there. And we talk about this a lot, which is, and it is that obsession of sleep with me. It's, every hotel marketer generally, like, I try to point out to them that what you're doing in marketing is akin to walking into a bar and walking up to everyone in that bar and asking them to come sleep with you. And honestly, your conversion rates match.
Right.
Ed has tried this.
Ask enough people, you will get a
Ed actually is one of those guys who actually tracks his conversion.
Yeah, he tracks his back in a youthful time.
That's right. Ask enough people the same question.
Yeah.
No matter how bad the question is, you are going to eventually get a yes.
Okay, we're starting to get a little creepy. I'm the one who started it. I feel bad.
I do want to kind of go backwards just for one moment and add a little bit to the conversation we had about not just necessarily talking about Hilton, but this is indigenous of most large companies.
Hey, you were talking about Hilton?
Oh, yeah.
What?
Oh, I'm sorry. The other letter. Anyway. Any large corporation has a unfortunate problem of what I call Joe in the volcano, where you get to this operating conditioning of what the boss likes or doesn't like. You're always wanting to give good and never give disruptive stuff. So eventually, everything's triggered on, he likes this, let's give this to him. They want revenue, let's give this. So it's like going to the volcano and throwing fruit in, hoping the gods are happy that they're not going to go over blow up the island. And so the idea is that operant conditioning comes into play, that they don't think about the real value proposition of what you were talking about with email. It's all about function and form. Let's just show the good number. Let's not show the bad number. And it's just check the box, and not think about ways that adaptively we should be doing better for the customer, which inherently, and Hilton's not alone in this process, but most large companies tend to do this. Hey, it worked once. Let's do it again because he liked it. Let's do it again because he liked it, and disregard the actual damage it's creating in
actually the
KPIs.
Most of the hotels and hotel groups aren't even doing the he liked it. It's the aggregate liked it, which is even worse. That's even more damaging. If they would at least get to the point of behavioral targeting, which again is not hard to do. It's hard to plan for.
This is where you can look at the sophistication of the internet, which is that you can now cookie everybody so that is the person landing on my page right now a male 1834 with disposable income of over 100K, or is it a female 45 to 54 who's looking to plan the next vacation for her family? You have to market very differently to all of those. I do want to just go back to one thing you mentioned a minute ago, Lauren, which is this whole idea of in the early days that, everyone was focusing on search, right? And the reason that you now have these hotels that are comfortable, they've somehow made peace with spending $10 to $20 cost per click right to a book now is because they think that that's going to lead to, that instantaneous conversion. Here's a 2017 newsflash. 75% of internet users now have ad blockers installed on their computer. So
Right.
how are you connecting with that consumer when your ads are no longer reaching them?
Right.
And it's all about, I mean, if you just think about each of us as a, you know, our own consumer, I know I have my loyalty when it comes to hotels. I know I have my loyalty when it comes to airlines, cruise lines, etc. And I'm not going to even act like they're only NewsCred clients. That would be dishonest of me. We all have our own loyalty. We all have the you know, hotels that make us feel the most like a VIP, and we continue to go back them. And content is the #1 way to begin to build that loyalty relationship.
Yep.
And that's what I would really encourage everybody to think about is, you know, that's listening, is it's no longer about just driving to that short-term sale, because you might get that sale. You might have hit them one time with that 20% off discount banner ad that, you know, they were one of the fraction of a percent who actually clicked on and ended up converting. But are they coming back to you? Are they returning to your organization from a long-term perspective? That is the question that we should be asking.
And here's the other thing that, and I'm surprised revenue managers haven't gotten and like shaken marketers yet, but you discount because you have to. And you have to discount because you have not correctly given the value proposition and earned the trust that the value proposition you're presenting is worth the price that to enter. And there are brands that have gone overboard where they get a higher price than they really should for the product they're doing because they have so oversold the trust in their client base. Apple's a perfect example of a brand that doesn't discount. And honestly, even when the rare occasions they do discount, they're horrible discounts. Like they're just not discounts.
$10
Token
off.
discounts, yeah.
Right. $10 off this $4,000 item.
Although usually the discounts in the form of an iTunes gift card, which
Right, exactly. Exactly.
But the point is if you correctly build a relationship and give your value proposition, guess what you don't have to do anymore?
Discount.
Discount.
Yeah. Or, and I would even go one step further. You not only no longer have to discount, you're shifting. You're going to notice that you're then able to go as the VP of marketing or the CMO up to your CEO and say, I can actually now prove the value that for every $1 I spend in content marketing, I generated 5.
Right.
Let's shift dollars from ineffective advertising budgets into content marketing, because we can actually see the ROI. And this goes to the measurement piece that I'm curious if anyone on the call has any questions about, because I think for the longest time, especially when you talk to the chief revenue officers, the CEOs that really don't touch marketing directly and are only focused on what's driving bottom line revenue, I think a really difficult challenge for marketers was this inability to actually measure. And you would, could talk about all the soft vanity metrics like brand equity and product recall and all of these things, but is it actually putting more heads in beds? That question was really difficult to answer. You can now, through, and of course I'm going to tout the company that I work for, NewsCred, you can actually use a technology like NewsCred to track from the moment that your customer was exposed to that first piece of content all the way through the customer journey. How many more pieces did they engage with? Did they leave the site and come back 3 days later? Are they coming back for repeat bookings, etc.? You can actually track the moment that they were exposed to the content all the way until commerce. And that's why we always say it's about driving content to commerce, not just doing content for content's sake. And so the measurement ability to actually be able to prove the ROI, we're able to see that that's equipping our clients with all of the tools necessary to then go to their leadership and say, you gave me $100,000 to trial this out last year. I proved the value of it. We were able to tie $300,000 in revenue to that spend directly, and the attribution is now actually proven down to the exact dollar. If we want to make more money doing this, I need more budget. And we're actually now seeing our marketing teams that we work with go back, and they're able to make the case for much higher budgets because they can prove that ROI. So
you were talking about analytics, right? So can you get a little more specific about like the measures that you look at, the things that, what's a leading indicator? What are the things people should be looking at that say, when we see this number go up, that usually means we're going to get more cash in the cash register at the end of the day?
I mean, definite, engagements, right? So it's no longer about just jumping on your page for one page view. I think that's a pretty much archaic metric that might have been helpful in the early days of the internet, but it's all about what are they doing. So looking at time on site, if you can, prove that a user is going from spending 30 seconds to 3 minutes, we have seen direct correlations to revenue, right? To know that the longer somebody spends engaging with your content, I mean, it's almost logical, the more they're going to, connect and convert to a continuous customer. I would say the number of pieces of content. I would also try to look at types of content. Not everybody's going to want to read a blog post. Some people are not going to want to watch 2-minute videos. It's all depending on the type of customer. So I would look at the diversity of content, and that will actually help inform future content strategy. You can then look at, let's see, I mean, obviously we want to drive repeat bookings, loyalty signups. So what was the user doing before they said, you know what, now I'm inspired. This company has earned my trust, so I'm willing to give them my email to start a longer conversation. And if you can look at the steps in the customer journey that were happening up until that point, I think that is absolutely a great thing. The other thing that I encourage our clients to do is to actually leverage your customers, survey them, ask them what they're looking for most, what is going to inspire them most. I think this is something that definitely is not something we do often enough as marketers. We try to spend all this time and we look at all the analytics and we look at the research and we come up with hypotheses and conclusions about what our clients want. Ask them, right? Just whether this is a survey that they can take after their stay that you hit them up with via email. We've gotten really crafty and have started partnering with some of these survey companies that can actually kind of give a pop-up on the site and say, hey, we noticed that you're actually enjoying a lot of the content on this site. Would you mind helping us understand what content you would like in the future? You'd be surprised at how many people actually say, yeah, I do. I really love Wyndham or Intercontinental or Starwood enough that I'm willing to now give you another 60 seconds of my time because you've added so much value to my journey as the consumer to now let you know exactly what I'm going to be looking for.
So Jonathan, we got a question from Dave who wants to know, how do you price your product and is it affordable for independent properties?
Great question. Let's definitely get down to brass tacks and talk about the pricing. So typically, our relationships start at the $100,000 level, and they could go anywhere. We have clients in the 7-figure level that are pumping out a massive amount of content. It's really a typical, it breaks down to really what the client is looking for. So a lot of clients come to us and say, we really need to eradicate inefficiency. We just need the technology. And we'll go in and we'll just kind of stand them up. One thing that I think is really important to mention about NewsCred, we have built integrations with Salesforce from a CRM perspective, companies like Marketo and Eloqua from an automation standpoint, WordPress, Uberflip, whatever other technologies our clients are using to actually track, page analytics, whether it's from Google or Omniture, conversions, whatever you're using, we have the ability to integrate directly into, and that allows us to do everything I was mentioning earlier from driving content to commerce. So the technology itself will typically be anywhere from $80,000 to $100,000 a year, just depending on how much you're looking for. And then we kind of build the content and the strategy together so that if you're saying I'm not interested in licensed content, which we really didn't get to earlier, so just a quick 5 seconds on that is, imagine if the New York Times created an article that said the top 5 destinations to visit this summer on a budget. You might want to actually license that article, which is totally different from just
which is what you should do to not break the law.
Exactly. You can put up on your Twitter feed, oh, look at this great article on New York Times. But guess what? Customer clicks that link and they're now on the New York Times. They've left your experience and the likelihood to book with you goes down monumentally. So I'm happy to follow up. By the way, jonathan.stone@NewsCred, if anybody does have any additional questions or wants to talk about NewsCred at their hotel property, happy to follow up with anybody. The then bundles. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, John. No, go
I
ahead,
was just going to
Jonathan.
finish the pricing. It breaks down into bundles that are usually about $30K a piece, and that could be a combination of original content creation, which, as I mentioned earlier, could be anything from blog posts to videos to infographics to webisodes. You name it, we can do it. We have a team of over 10,000 freelancers, as well as about 50 people in-house that are just constantly pumping out amazing content for our clients. Licensed content, that ends up usually being about anywhere from $500 to $1,000 per article, which, if anyone on the line is in the content creation game, that is monumentally less expensive than original content. So we really lean very heavily into licensed content as a way to scale the marketing efforts of our clients. Furthermore, it establishes your credibility as a thought leader in the space. Sure, Wyndham is always going to continue telling you that Wyndham's the best hotel, but if a report comes out in the Times or the Wall Street Journal that actually cites that, that's a great piece of content that all of our customers are encouraged to use on their owned and operated sites. So typical, I would say, come into about, we obviously kind of offer a bundle rate, not to go back to our 20 sign now, get 20% off conversation, but it comes in right at around $190,000, and that is inclusive of something that I haven't really had a chance to discuss yet, our advisory services, the expertise, which you can almost think about as your content strategy consultancy. And that's where we do all of the things that we've spoken about, such as doing a content audit, looking at the KPIs that you should be tracking to actually drive the number of conversions, and going from just building a short-term content, we know that we should be doing it, so let's just pump out some blog posts, to what does a 24-month content marketing roadmap strategy to success look like? And that's what our advisory services comes in at.
Very cool.
Very cool.
I think we should have told you before, Jonathan. You mentioned a couple times. You don't want about you. We are completely cool with shameless promotion around.
Oh yeah,
that's sort of the tagline for the podcast.
Yeah.
Shameless promotion rules. One question I want to ask, as we're coming up on almost 50 minutes now.
Yeah, it's how fast it goes, right?
Your time is, I always have to ask the consulting 101 question, which is, what haven't we asked you that we should have? What haven't you had a chance to talk about or tell us about and tell the audience about that you'd like them to know or like us to know?
I mean, we could get into like the existential meaning of life if you want.
Winning lotto.
Man, here we go again. Come back to the existential meaning of life.
And
have you been watching our shows?
Why I bring vodka to the show.
I mean, I think that's a great question. It's kind of like what else should we know? I mean, I would just, once again, more than happy to follow up with anybody on the line. I think I would ask yourselves the question of, at the end of the quarter, when you look back on your performance, were you driving short-term results for that quarter, or were you trying to actually elevate the relationship with your customers so that future quarters are only going to grow monumentally compared to previous? And I think it's really just, are you focusing on short-term profit or long-term lasting customer relationships? Which, just think about yourself as a consumer, and you'll start making better decisions as a marketer, because you'll look at the companies that have earned your trust, that have earned your loyalty, that have demonstrated credibility in the hospitality industry and provided you with an amazing experience. Ask yourself if you're then offering that same experience for the customers that you're trying to reach.
That's awesome. Very cool.
Yeah. Very good.
I have to say that from conversations going through this, it's kind of funny that as you're discussing this, we have an aversion for doing longer work or harder work. We always try to go for the easier task. It takes a skill set to say, look, let's balance out, take the most important thing, do it first, regardless of the level of work. Even some of the trainings of people of how to get through your day better is take the hardest thing first and get through with it, and the rest of the day is easier, whatever. Content marketing is one of the harder things to do. It's not the low-hanging fruit, analogy-wise. It's not the let's just flip a switch or push a button and make it happen. It's a cultivation of strategy and content, but process and methodologies that go through. You're talking about roadmaps, you're talking about time cycles, you're talking about incubations, and it's a process to go through. And what you're saying is NewsCred actually allows you to not short circuit that, but take that and put it into a professional environment where it's not you're taking inexperienced people within your own network and asking them to create these things and do these things. You're saying, look, give it to the experts that know how to do it best, that are already in the ad environment, that professional bloggers, professional copywriters, professional content developers for infographics, videography, and so forth. And let's do that and then track it and monitor it tailored to what you specifically need.
100%. I think that content marketing, that there's two things I want to say in response to that. Great, very salient point, which is it is definitely part art, but what NewsCred has done is really tried to make it as much of a science as possible. And we've tried to tie all of that beautiful creative content that companies create to bottom line revenue, what's actually driving site traffic, what's getting customers to come back and engage with us even more. So that's the first thing is if you're approaching content marketing as an art, there's a chance you might create some beautiful content, but if you're not grounding it in, can we measure the effects on it? Because that's ultimately how we're going to go and get increased budget from our C-suite, right? That's I think the biggest question. So kind of that whole art versus science. And then the other thing that I'll mention is content marketing. You're right. It's not an overnight win, right? You are not going to, we have a lot of clients come to us, prospective clients, and say, I really like it, but I don't know if I can get the budget from, my CMO. So could you do a 1-month pilot? No. To clarify, these could be paid pilots, and we still say no.
Right.
We know that the value of content marketing, first, we're not even going to be able to get everything from a technical standpoint implemented until about 2 to 3 months so that we can track everything from content to commerce. But then you're not really going to be seeing the ROI until probably month 4 at the very earliest. And that's because we're not talking about short overnight wins. We're talking about long-term lasting client relationships. And that does not happen overnight. That is
nobody wants those, though.
It's so funny. I literally, in a very small microcosm compared to what you probably had to deal with by declining people, I actually had, after doing an audit process with the hotel group, they said, well, let's do this SEO thing for a month and see how it works out. I'm like, no, we're not doing SEO thing for a month. It's a long-term program. It's going to take months to implement and not.
Yeah, but guys, you're missing. We got to report numbers at the end of the quarter. So, we got to get that.
Yeah.
Well, listen, and this is, to be fair, this is what happens when you're running a business that is incredibly complex, right? Their heads are always in different areas, and it's one of the most highly disrupted, economies right now. Is travel is just so disrupted, and it's just more and more disruption every day. It gets tough for these people to look at it. And here's the only thing I'll say to a hotel: if you're talking to any marketing technology that claims you will have ROI inside, honestly, I'm going to be brutally honest here, inside of a quarter, right? Like the first quarter being live, they're just really good at stealing attribution. Period.
That's a great point. That's a really
fantastic point.
We have a question from Sandra that says, can the content you create be used for email and social, or only for your website?
I saw that question. I absolutely love it. And I'm definitely glad that we're going to get the chance to go over this. All of the above. And I think that this speaks to a greater point, which is that sometimes we find that at our companies, you'll have a very siloed team of maybe 3 to 5 people that are managing the blog. You'll then have an entirely different team that's managing social. You'll then have an entirely different team that's managing email, and they never talk to each other. You end up with this very fragmented approach to marketing where nothing seems standardized, nothing seems streamlined. To answer your question, Sandra, within the NewsCred, what's called CMP, Content Marketing Platform, you have the ability to actually publish to all of those different channels. And you can even see the calendar of what's going out to social this week, what's going to be blasted in our email marketing. And it can all, what I think is so important about bringing all of those different channels under one auspice is that you're actually able to then track and measure them against each other and come up with conclusions like, wow, our Twitter feed, publishing to that drove 3 times the amount of traffic to our site this week versus our Facebook page. So we're going to probably lean a lot heavier into building our Twitter feed. So, that's just a quick example. But yes, the answer to your question is within the NewsCred platform, you can publish to every single one of your marketing channels: email, social, website, you name it.
That's really cool. That's really great information.
And by the way, it should. Like, content marketing doesn't happen in one form. And honestly, engagement doesn't happen in one form. If you're not thinking guest journey across all forms of communication, you're not doing it right.
And you also lose the ability to come out with a standardized communication, right? And I mean, if you look at the companies that do this so well, they have created such a brand persona that it doesn't matter where you're engaging with them, from digital to offline, et cetera, that brand, that message, that identity just shines through, right? And I'm sure we all have companies that we could think of that have done this really well.
Now, to be fair, that does not mean your email should start looking like a web page.
No, definitely not.
I do want to be clear on that. Your email, like, use your form of communication correctly, but bridge your themings, your branding, and all of that across all of them.
Exactly. This goes back to the point you made earlier about people saying, "Oh, well, we've tried email and it just doesn't work." Yeah, that's because you're doing horrible email. It's not the medium; it's the message, right? And I think that is super, super important.
Well, anytime anyone says something doesn't work in marketing, I always ask the question of, well, what did you try?
Right.
And if there wasn't experiments behind it, then it's just not a conversation worth having. Because there's way too much complexity, and that's why I laugh when I see reports that say, like, social advertising doesn't work. Social advertising doesn't work if you get it wrong. If you just send people from a very personal environment into a generic environment, you're not going to get a high conversion rate. Yeah. And this is where content marketing, like social advertising in content marketing, like that bolts up beautifully together. Because you're providing value to someone who is looking around for value or entertainment. I mean, it's just amazing to me.
Question to this, and this is probably the antithesis of what NewsCred does, in the sense that I'm sure that some people get perhaps a little sticker shock at the 100,000 startup. They don't realize that when you break that down into a monthly scale and then paying professional people to do timed work, that number isn't very big at all. It's a very reasonable, considered size project that people can attain, and they just see the big number perhaps. But from an inversion of what you do to those that are having to build up to that process, any guidance as to the independent hotelier that isn't in their budget spectrum, to say, how can and how should is there something I can do that's at a lower scale but still in the right direction, that you can give them some pointers to?
Absolutely. I did see Dave's question, are you affordable for independent properties? So I'm not sure if my answer to the other pricing question gave you an outright no to that, but definitely feel free to reach out. We could always chat about something that works within budget. It's all based on client need, right? So NewsCred is the most holistic solution, right? And I'm not saying that personally. Gartner actually ranked a bunch of content marketing platforms and ranked us most holistic. You might not need the software, the content, and the strategy. You might say, you know what, we have a great in-house, we just need the technology so that they're all able to kind of jump onto one platform to plan, create, build, and then measure the effectiveness of their content. And maybe you just need a technology, in which case, I would say there's certainly a lot of our competitors are just kind of we're going to give you a week of onboarding and get you set up on the platform and then wash our hands with it and drag and drop it off at you at your business. And you can call us as needed. You have 1 hour of customer service time per month and good luck, right? That's not our company. I would say that if you're looking for one of those technologies, they certainly exist. And if you're trying to just get ramped up on a budget, that might be your solution, right?
Well,
agencies are going
let's be honest. Let's be honest on where they should start, because even a large hotel who has done nothing around content marketing, or a hotel that maybe was using an agency and is looking to start bringing certain things in-house, there are places to start. And the first place to start is ask yourself, how can you add value to the people that you're interacting with? I had a hotel in Orlando recently ask me this. They were near Disney, but they weren't super convenient to Disney, and they know that people who are staying with them purely because they're going to Disney. And I said, well, that's amazing, because now you know your audience. You're a local. Anyone who lives in Orlando knows all the secrets to how to do the theme parks, knows them all. And there's some amazing secrets to how to do the theme parks. Some are as simple as go right instead of left. So I told them, I said, listen, just write some tips on how to best do the theme park, because that's how you're going to start building your relationship, and track it. Track how many people interact with that, how many of them are giving you positive responses on surveys. I mean, you can start small by building high quality content that serves the need of your guest. Then use that to start building the case for a more sophisticated approach to content marketing. It doesn't all, it's not zero to news cred, right? Because the problem is 0 to news cred, you're going to be a tough customer for news cred, because they're going to have to teach you what content marketing is. However, you can get started by just writing really good content and thinking about where it belongs in the guest journey.
And I would also say, I go back to my idea earlier about a survey. Surveys are free market research. If somebody just had an amazing stay at your hotel, and you then say, hey, thank you so much for staying. We hope you had a wonderful stay. We're really trying to figure out how we can add more value to our customer, journey, and give you amazing content that is only going to increase your likelihood to come back to us. Before you leave, would you mind taking this quick 5-minute survey? You have a chance to win another free night stay, in a month from now, whatever the case might be, whatever incentive you have to give them. DoubleTree gives you a cookie every time you check in, right? Like, customers respond to little, gimmicky gifts here and there. Whatever you could do to get that research from them, and then say, yeah, on my next time in Orlando, obviously I knew everything about Disney, but it would have been really great if maybe you could have told me the top 5 restaurants to eat at in the area, or how to plan my first Disney vacation with a toddler, whatever the case might be. Value that you are driving to customers, there's no better place to go than the customer themselves to get that information from.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And also, the other thing is just remember, it's about hospitality.
Right.
A lot of the stuff your customers want are what you do in person. You just need to extend that into the digital world.
That's exactly right.
Good point. Good point. We just, again, it's so how fast time goes. I mean, literally, we've had the chance, Jonathan, to be with you an hour, and this is no means a slowdown to this. You can continue with us as well. I'm the one that's actually short on time today. I do want to remind people that are on the show that we have only 4 windows up. We have seats for 6, so there's still 2 open chairs if somebody wants to join.
Holly's
Yeah, Holly, who might potentially win. She's one of our other frequent co-hosts. It tends to hang in the chat room and is a great fact checker for us. But I'm going to be tipping out here in just a minute because I have to go off and finish packing the house. So I'm going to leave it to both of you guys to continue on the conversations. And Jonathan, if I don't get the chance again to say thank you so very much for, I know you had some struggles to get to us because you had to go and hurt yourself to miss the first show. But to get you back on this one, it's been really a pleasure to have you with us.
For those who didn't know, I did tear a meniscus in my right knee the day before I was supposed to come on the last show. And Lauren, you were so understanding, which I really appreciate. I was like, I could come on, but I'm on like Vicodin, and I don't think you want me on the show right now.
I said that
certainly not if you're bringing enough for everybry.
That's right. If you're bringing enough for everyone, we're good.
I'm like, I don't know if I can share that with you digitally just yet. But, it's been an awesome pleasure. I'm happy to come back anytime. I mean, it sounds like your audience, just based on some of the great questions we got, are the ones who get it, that are open to it, they understand it. Jonathan.stone@newscred.com for all of your questions. We even have a great insights blog, and one thing I always say is we drink our own Kool-Aid at NewsCred. We actually have an amazing blog called Insights, and we've done a bunch of great pieces on hospitality content marketing. Who's doing it great? who's not doing it so well, which we've kind of discussed a lot of today. Hopefully no one from HH is online. But yeah, I really am happy to come back anytime.
Awesome.
It's been a real, this is like exactly the conversation that gets me out of bed in the morning. So thanks for having me.
No, I appreciate it very much. And you are an open invitation to join us whenever and however you want to. You don't have to come in and by any special invitation. We have one of our other co-hosts that's regular for us, Stuart, out of Fuel Travel in Myrtle Beach, started as a co-host, a special co-host, and he just decided to linger and keep popping back on the shows. yeah. So you're always welcome to come in and co-host for us. Just let us know if you ever have an interest. I'll keep the invites sent to you, so you can always join us at will. With that, gentlemen, I'm actually going to tune out and let you guys continue the conversation. And for those, just for the show to know that everything is at hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com/live. All the archives of the shows, all 105 of them now, are there. So thank you again, Jonathan, for being with us. Please stay. Mr. Ed, Mr. Tim, thank you so much for taking over. I'm going to go over and duck out so that my wife is happy with me, and I'll get back in my truck.
Have a good one.
Thanks,
right.
Lauren.
Happy trucking.
Happy trucking. Yes, thank you. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
And I do just, I have to run in about 5, but I am more than happy if there are any last burning questions before I jet. Just want to give anyone the opportunity to ask.
All right, fantastic.
So, Jonathan, real quick, send a reply to us with the link to your blog, and we'll post it up into the show.
Perfect.
So that way, anyone who watches this on YouTube afterwards, or any of the other places you can watch our show, can actually see a reference to the link. And then Tim will put it up on the internet, also known as Tim Peters' blog.
Speaking of which, since we do talk about shameless promotion, this is a post I wrote a couple years ago about how for travel marketers, content is still king. But since it was, top of mind. No, but Jonathan, in all seriousness, if you go ahead and send us a link to the blog, we will.
Oh, good. You figured out how to use the side thing. Perfect.
I just put it up. Yep. You got insights.newscred.com. And, I think this is super important because we have actually generated a tremendous amount of new client leads, repeat business, et cetera, because of this insights blog. So this is just a great way to show you that we're actually drinking our own Kool-Aid, and we're doing content marketing as a content marketing company, as meta as that is. And just feel free to reach out.
Well,
at your disposal.
Isn't that kind of the fun thing about what you do? I mean, so we do a different type of content marketing. Ours is around guest advocacy, and almost all of our marketing budget is R&D.
Mm-hmm.
So we actually just test out different approaches to marketing and marketing automation on our potential prospects, and what works ends up getting productized to engagement with travelers, because people are people. It doesn't matter if it's B2B, B2C.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same thing. Like if you go to our website, flip.to, every piece of content on that site is around a guest story and a guest experience.
Mm-hmm.
And it's to show hotels really the value of really compelling content and what it can do, even when it's selling content marketing.
Yep. I sum everything you just set up in one of my favorite phrases in marketing, which is focus on people, not pixels, and you will be a lot better at your business.
Yep.
If you're just focusing on the conversion on your site and how quick can I get them to buy book a new room, you're focusing on the wrong thing. Focus on the person. We all have emotions. We all want to love and cry and laugh. And if you can actually do that as a marketer and inspire that like beautiful, Marriott video or the WestJet video we spoke about earlier, that is what takes that relationship from just short-term transactional to really long-lasting trust building.
That's right. Well, listen, I know you have short time, so thank you for joining us. Seriously, please feel free to join us at any time. We're not always this structured. A lot of times it's a grab bag of topic.
This was awesome.
Tends to get interesting, but I do really appreciate you coming on, and really believe in what you guys are doing.
Thanks so much. Really great to join you guys, and I'd love to make a repeat booking of this experience, so let's definitely make that happen. You've earned.
We'll make sure you remember you said that. All right, you have a great weekend.
Take care, guys. Bye bye.
Take care. Bye now.
So Tim.
So Ed.
Snapchat spectacles.
Snapchat spectacles. Wait, they're not working?
No, who would have thought Snapchat spectacles were not going to work.
So I'm going to let you have your Snapchat rant first, and then I have my very, very, very quick one. But you do yours first.
Well, first, so everyone knows what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Bam. Oh, I did it to admin. Let me do it to everybody.
I was like, I see it. By the way, actually, we need to put in a different link because these, when you.
Oh, do they make you go through Newsstand?
Yeah, they make you go through Newsstand. We need to get the real link. I will find that while you rant.
All right. It's a CNET article. View original article. Here we go.
Yeah.
So, Snapchat and, new companies in general tend to get a cool factor about them. And that cool factor tends to blind people to realistic expectations of how the world works. And if we remember last year, when the spectacles were announced, there was a question about them being the next hot item. And I found that question was asinine because they're sunglasses with a camera on them. And they're not even really cool looking sunglasses. They're kind of embarrassing looking. And I said they were going to be haunted by the same haunting that Google Glass had, which is the people who will adopt them will make them uncool.
Right.
And that was met with some resistance of, no, Snapchat's got a big plan. Snapchat's got a big plan. The problem is Snapchat's big plan, you could tell this was not them executing on what had made them successful to that point. This was them trying to ride a wave of something cool to get attention. And now if you read the article, it didn't even take long for it to begin its downward spiral. And there's a cat.
And there's Willow. Hi, Willow.
Yeah. So anyways, when I saw this article this morning, it tickled me because I believe I went as far as coming out and saying that they were going to be a complete and utter failure. And there was questions to if I was just being overdramatic. So this is my I told you so moment.
Well, I think Snapchat has two problems fundamentally. First of all, I want to be very clear. I've said this before. I will say this again. Every site that does not look like Snapchat today on social will at some point, whether or not Snapchat. And
I've always said their UI design is probably the best UI design out there, and it is the future.
Right. Now, that said, they have two major problems. I have said for a long time, the biggest problem that Snapchat has is that when Mark Zuckerberg founded Facebook, he didn't have to compete with Mark Zuckerberg. Right. And every time Snapchat comes up with something cool, Instagram or Facebook or both just rip it off. I mean, they introduce their own product that looks surprisingly similar. And that's a real problem for them because social networks win because of the network effect, right? You can't leave Facebook until everybody you knows leaves Facebook, until everybody you know leaves Facebook. Mm-hmm. And obviously, if you don't all go at once, nobody's going. And that's really the but that is a huge problem when
it's a huge problem because of their second problem you're going to talk about.
Well, no, the second problem is a different thing entirely.
I think it's discovery. Discovery inside of Snapchat is still incredibly difficult.
Well, it is, but the folks who use it, I live with at least one extremely active user of Facebook, and this is what I think one of their other problems is. It wasn't the second one I was going to say, but one of their other problems is it's very tough to monetize because the people who love it, what they love about it is the fact that it's not really monetized.
Right.
That's a huge issue. That's probably their bigger problem. I was going to make a joke second problem. Evan Spiegel, the creator of Snapchat, the founder of Snapchat, just got married to former Victoria's Secret model Miranda Kerr. Right?
Oh, that's a big problem for Snapchat.
Well, no, it is you can make glasses that look like that when the person you see wearing them, everything looks good on.
Mm-hmm.
There's no reason to make the glasses look cool because right? I mean, to a certain degree, they're seeing the world through rose-colored glasses. If I can make a really lame
neon colored glasses.
Neon colored glasses.
No, I mean, here's the problem. Let's talk about what good social networks are really good at, which they're good at scope creep They're good at taking you for whatever reason you're looking at it and bleeding hours out of you. I could send you a very funny YouTube video and not hear from you for 7 hours and know that there's a good chance you went 7 hours down the rabbit hole of related videos.
Monitoring what I do online again.
And Facebook's the same thing. You go on Facebook because you want to go look at a post that someone told you about, and then you do that, and then the post right next to it sucks you into an article about, the Marvel Cinematic Universe's like ultimate shift, and you're like, oh, and then you go read that, and there's another article, and next thing you know, you were going on for a quick check to make sure you like someone's photo so that they know you pay attention, and you're hours into it, and it's scope creep.
Right.
They have designed scope creep into their user experience.
That's exactly right.
And Snapchat hasn't done a great job at that. And they also forget that a large amount of the activity on Facebook is consumption. Right. There are people who are voyeurists in social media, and Snapchat has not answered that. You can't just go on and look for people and check out what they're up to. You have to be connected to them, and they have to have posted something that is allowed to survive. So, so you get rid of all the voyeurist activity, you get rid of scope creep. Now it's a communication platform. And as a communication platform, it's not just competing with Facebook, who's doing a great job at becoming a communication platform. It's also competing with Slack and Skype and
WhatsApp and
right. So good UI is not going to get you to conquer an entire industry of pretty high quality UI.
Yeah, that's right. Well, and the reality is nobody needs another social network. No. I mean, realistically,
I agree.
There's no place in most people's lives for another social network. I talk about this a lot. I'm a big fan of Ben Thompson over at Stratechery and the Exponent podcast. He talks a lot about a thing called aggregation theory, which, to sum up in 10 words or less, to the victor go the spoils, right? Mm-hmm. The bigger you get, the bigger you get. And, Facebook is going to be awfully tough for anyone to take down. And if you're going to create a new social network,
well, because it's going to require them taking their eye off the prize.
Yeah, right, exactly. And if you're going to do it, you need to give people a damn compelling reason to do it. Pinterest has done a relatively good job of it in their own way, but it's a very limited set of users, and it's a very limited, set of use cases.
And their revenue, because of it, is also very limited.
Commensurately smaller, right?
It's incredibly difficult. Like, we look at Pinterest heavily. Because we think
I bet you do. Yeah,
we think it's interesting for travel advertising.
Yep.
It's really hard to crack, though, because one of the reasons we think it's interesting is just the sheer fact of how many women are actively planning a wedding on Pinterest.
Yeah.
But here's the problem. A large majority of those women are not currently in a relationship. So you're talking top of funnel. So how do you build an engagement to win with someone who's planning a wedding?
Right. That might happen.
And there's way too many variables still left to be set.
That's a great point.
So that's some of the challenges that you need to look at with these different networks. Is in their niches, they also have created their own limitations. Where Facebook has done, I've always been bullish on Facebook.
Yeah.
And part of the reason is they're super nimble. They are the next Google. They're not they're the internet. They're not just a social network, and they're doing an incredibly good job of expanding into areas that are difficult to expand into.
Well, and I'm going to take a slightly different take on that. I think we, as with many things, we probably agree completely. We just come at it from a slightly different perspective.
You like these pesky things called details.
Well, no, the only thing I take issue with is they're not the next Google. They are Google, right? Google and Facebook are the internet to the bulk of the world. Yep. That's the game. I don't have the stat in front of me. I can look it up in a minute.
They're 80% of all mobile revenue growth.
Correct. And they're 65% of all internet revenue growth.
Right. Which is amazing. Because prior to Google, and I like taking things to this because everyone gets uncomfortable when I say this, prior to Google's revenue generation and Facebook's revenue generation, do we know where most of the revenue of the internet was going?
I do.
Okay, where?
Yahoo and AOL.
No, my friend.
Oh, yeah.
Far more money changing hands on pornography.
Oh, well, sure. I'm sorry. I thought you meant the legit internet.
No, but let's not forget most, like what we're currently doing, we're capable of doing because of the pornography industry.
Well, that's true.
Video compression, streaming video. If you look at most of the architecture on the internet, that investment was paved off the backs of, I'm not going to finish that sentence.
But no. But the flip side of that, and I mean, this is an interesting. This is something I. Boy, was I going to set myself up for a dangerous No, this is something I've read about because actually, porn of all things has the same problem these days where they can't make money either because you can go on Google or what have you and go find it all for free if you are so inclined.
No one's going to buy the cow if you give away the milk for free.
But it's the same problem lots of content creators are having.
Right.
Which is
but
they
here's
have
the
no
thing.
way to monetize this. Actually, one quick thing, because this gets back to the Facebook point. Facebook made a big deal this week, and this is where they are very interesting. Not that they haven't been all along, but they've just announced the Facebook Watch video tab, which is launching in August, launching in just a couple of weeks, with its own shows, with original content, right? And so what they're doing is they're basically saying, Google has the discovery nut cracked. People go to Google when they have a question that they need to ask, right? To use the old marketing cliche, nobody needs a hole. Nobody needs a drill. They need a hole. So if I need a hole, I go to Google and I search for how do I get a hole, right? How do I make a hole? And when for everything else, people go to Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
And Facebook is saying, or actually, let me say that differently. They go to Facebook or they go to YouTube.
Right.
And now Facebook is saying, okay, we want some of that sweet, sweet YouTube money.
That's right.
And especially that sweet, sweet television money, of which there's a lot.
Well, and here's the thing I'm really hoping they're going to do with Watch is allow shows like this to get off of platforms like this and go onto that platform.
Yeah, that'd be
because
great.
if they do, we will be a Watch show, and our show will get bigger because of it.
Of course it will. Well, because I don't know how many 1.5 billion people are there, or
2.1 billion.
No, but I mean
monthly, like monthly users, right?
Monthly active, right? Yeah, it's a big audience.
Well, even like, all right. So without going too far down a rabbit hole, like let's talk about walled gardens of content, and it's a balance. So yes, the industries that are writing content are having a hard time understanding how to make money.
Yeah.
But then you look at the really annoying stalwarts that will not open up their content, such as the biz journals.
Sure.
There's nothing that irritates me more on my discovery apps than them sending me to like truly 100% gated content.
Right.
And when I say discovery app, I'm even talking about like my stock app. I hate when my stock app sends me to Wall Street Journal or biz journals.
Totally.
Because the thing is, I will not pay.
Right.
Because you want to know why I will not pay? Because they still have advertising in their content. I will pay to eliminate advertising. I will not pay for the same content experience that everyone else on the internet makes their money off of advertising on to also then, see content that has advertising in it.
Okay, so I'm going to take the opposite side of this one. Now, this one, I don't know that I agree with you. I agree with you about the part about if I'm going to pay, why do you also subject me to ads? I got no issue with that.
Yeah.
The part where I don't know that I agree specifically is, I am a content creator, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't mean my blog.
I'm aware. I'm very aware of how much content you create.
But I don't mean the blog. I don't mean that kind of stuff. I mean, my business depends on IP, depends on, here are processes we use, here are frameworks we use, and some of that we make publicly available. We put out on the blog, we put out on various channels, because slide share, things like that, because it's a lead gen, right? But the flip side is, I want to make sure that people come back and pay me to do what I do. So content creators who say this is gated content and you have to pay to get in, and I'm thinking about things like The Information. I'm thinking about sites like the Stratechery paid channel.
Depth of value that
where they're
exists
doing
behind
analysis,
a gate.
right? Where they're doing deeper level
access to the information behind the headline. Yes, I listen, and that's my problem, though, is we all know what's behind a biz journal login. It's a fluff piece on a local business. There is no value except to the business, right? And honestly, Wall Street Journal, it's fluff writing.
There's a lot of it is.
There's not a lot of depth and research behind it. There's not a lot of stats that you can't just get by Googling the headline and finding it somewhere else. So, to be clear, the value behind the gate needs to be compelling to deserve to have the gate. And everything in content is earning the next action. So whether it's earning the next word to be read, or earning the opt-in to the marketing, or earning the payment, it all happens prior to the ask. And then you need to do right by the person who fulfills the ask you want them to, by actually adding value for whatever step you ask them to take after the transaction.
That is one of my favorite things you've ever said. You've said it before, that the point of any piece of content is to earn the next interaction with that same content, right? The point of the first minute of video is to earn the second minute. The point of the first whatever of whatever, the first word of the blog post is to earn the second
I'm now
word.
sold on the fact that there's no such thing as the correct length of video. It's just dependent on how well you made the video.
Right. No, I completely agree.
Because we break, in our marketing, we break all the rules of video. Like, all our videos are
and sometimes
long.
It works.
Well, it always, we figured it out. We get an 82% completion rate on our videos.
That's
awesome. And all our videos are longer than they're supposed to be. But it's because
supposed to be.
Yeah, but we pour over making them as short as we possibly can, and also making them incredibly compelling, because we want you to finish. Totally. So anyways, but I hope Watch is open to platforms like this, because, man, I'd love nothing more than to get off of these architectures we've been having to use to do this show. Nothing more. I just would love it.
Well, and I think it could be great for hotel marketers too, because there are people who could do or CVBs, right? DMOs, folks like that, doing the Charleston show, the Myrtle Beach show, the Orlando show, right? And making it something interesting and compelling. Yeah, obviously, you're going to have to do a good job of it, but somebody could make really great content that today, even with 500 cable channels or whatever it is, ain't nobody going there. Right?
Oh, well, that's the other fun thing to talk to everyone about. Man, DirecTV Now. Are you familiar with DirecTV Now?
I'm no longer a DirecTV subscriber. I don't know DirecTV Now at all. Actually.
DirecTV Now, as far as I'm concerned, is the most disruptive thing happening in television. And it all started with...
Why is this?
So DirecTV Now is basically a channel service that's all over the internet. You do not have to have DirecTV to have DirecTV Now. And AT&T has done a wonderful job of negotiating content deals. So let me tell you about what I have with DirecTV Now. Okay. I pay $35 a month. I have 100 channels which match up. They include all of the channels that I watch through my normal cable provider.
Yep.
They also include HBO and Cinemax, the complete on-demand library that DirecTV's service has, and it's accessible from anywhere that has internet. So Apple TVs, Chrome sticks, smart TVs,
Fire Stick?
Phones, Fire Sticks, and it's HD quality, and the UI is amazing, and they just announced the DVR beta. That was the one last piece holding me from just completely canceling my paid TV subscription at home and going complete IP television, which is DirecTV Now.
Yeah, got it. Cool.
So
Okay,
DirecTV
well,
Now.
add it to my list.
Well, here's the thing: they're saying that anyone who's on gets grandfathered into the plan they're on, even though they're going to add all this other stuff. So I'm grandfathered into a plan I'm not sure still exists, which is $35 a month for the 100 channels.
Yep.
But I mean,
yeah, it's $35 a month for 60 channels, $60 a month for 100 channels.
that's CNN right there. Oh, and by the way, if you use AT&T service, they don't count this against your bandwidth.
Yeah, that I actually have a problem with, but we don't have time to go down that rabbit hole.
So anyways, why I'm bringing that up is I also noticed that all the television stations that are on DirecTV Now are using a different ad platform, and they're running different types of ads than you see on the television stations. So if television advertising is in your budget, you should be figuring out how to get on DirecTV Now.
Yeah.
Because they only run generally 3 ads per commercial break.
Right.
And they're good and they're interactive. And if you click on them, they take you to websites, which means you have tracking.
Well, that's very cool. Cool. Well,
yeah.
And I mean, this is where we're getting to, right? We're getting to addressable content. And again, this could become something that hotel marketers could become affordable for them.
Well, I'm willing to bet it's less expensive to advertise on a television show on DirecTV Now than it is on, DirecTV or Bright House or Spectrum or Time Warner or
right, for sure,
et cetera, et cetera.
All right,
yeah.
Well,
so with that, I do have to run because I have to go to meet the teacher. So yes, my daughter starts first grade on Monday.
Well, congratulations to make. Now, did she go to full day kindergarten or did she go to like half?
She was full day, like private kindergarten.
Got it. Well,
yeah.
But welcome to.
She has better handwriting than I do already.
Well, welcome to primary school. That's awesome.
Yep, exactly. So Tim, if people want to find you and things you care about, and also wonder why you got a mug when I got a Yeti. Where can they find that out?
They can find me at timpeter.com or on Twitter using the Twitter handle at tcpeter. And Ed, where can they find you?
They can find the things I care about at flip.to. And you can find me anywhere on social, Edward StOnge.
Awesome. Fantastic.
Awesome. And have a wonderful weekend.
You have a fantastic weekend. Take care. Holly, have a great day. We'll talk to you all soon. Take care, everyone.